Mr. Chairman, thank you for pulling together this hearing. I have two questions, one on budget and one on policy. On budget, I will note that when we talk about the work that we need to do with Mexico and other partners to counter the flow of fentanyl to the United States, there is funding both in the state and foreign ops budget, but also in the Homeland Security budget. That's the subcommittee of appropriations that I chair. In fact, we have nearly $1 billion in dedicated funding to help Homeland Security agencies work with the Mexican government. That's a record amount of funding. And I will also note that the Senate is taking this fight pretty seriously. As you know, the state and foreign ops budget has $125 million in dedicated counter-fentanyl funding globally. Again, we've got about $850 million in the Homeland budget. The House has allocated virtually nothing to this fight. And so hopefully we can convince our House colleagues to work with us to get serious. But I wanted to talk for a minute, and I'll ask this question to you, Ambassador Robinson, about the degree of cooperation we're getting from Mexico. And I'll just put a specific example on the table and ask you to respond. The port of Manzanillo is a really important port. That's where a lot of this precursor comes through. And we know a lot of it is moving pretty freely to the cartels. We know that there's an opportunity to interrupt a lot of that trade, and we know that that's probably the more effective means to do it instead of waiting until it arrives at our southern border. My understanding is we have had an offer on the table to work with the Mexican government to partner our expertise with their expertise to better identify and intercept fentanyl and fentanyl precursor at that specific port, but that offer still remains on the table, that the ball is effectively in the Mexican government's court. We have funding proposed to help fund that partnership, but it appears as one of perhaps several offers that we have made that have not yet been accepted by the Mexican government. So can you give us an update on that specific proposal that we've made and how it sits in the context of overall Mexican government cooperation?
Sure. Thank you so much. And you're absolutely right. Our relationship with Mexico on this issue is of the highest importance. My understanding is our colleagues in DHS and DEA are continuing to talk with their Mexican counterparts on specifically what we can do at the Port of Manzanillo. I think everyone recognizes that this is a key entrance point for precursor chemicals. Those talks are ongoing. Overall, I would say that our relationship across the board with our Mexican counterparts is quite good on operations at the border. We're looking at what we can do together to secure and shore up our border locations. There is no doubt that there are differences between what certain members of the Mexican government say regarding precursor chemicals and the production of fentanyl in Mexico. But despite those differences of opinion, the operational relationship remains on track.
Well, listen, I'm proud of the funding that we have put forward, but it is dependent upon having a willing partner. And these discussions that you reference around this particular port have been going on for a very long time. And it suggests that we might not, at least on this set of potential cooperative efforts, not have a partner as willing as we would like. My policy-related question will elicit an answer that will go far beyond my time, so I will just reference it and put it on the record. I'm very interested to continue a conversation we've been having, Ambassador Nichols, on the efficacy of Venezuela sanctions and to get an update from the administration as to the purpose of a set of sanctions that have, frankly, not effectuated results in the way that we had hoped. Obviously, we're coming up on an election in Venezuela that we hope is as open and fair and as free as possible. And I think it's important that we continue to have a conversation as to what we are getting for a sanctions policy that is often making us look pretty feckless with our partners around the world. So I will submit that question to for the record and yield back my time.
Thank you. Chairman Menendez.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding